Hello everyone, I'm Momen and I'm here to present our KIPE 2023 paper titled NewsComp Facilitating Diverse News Reading Through Comparative Annotation. This work was conducted by me and my co-authors from Virginia Tech, Google Research and University of Washington. This work is motivated by the issue of media bias. News media often produces content that is significantly biased in favor of a particular ideology. Take this example story about the origin of COVID taken from allsites.com. When a new evidence supporting a theory emerged about this origin, The Atlantic, a left-leaning source, emphasized this evidence as being the strongest, while Washington Examiner, a right-leaning source, framed the same story in the context of an opposing theory, that is the lab leak theory. In critical issues, this diverse presentation is often the case, and to have an informed opinion requires reading these diverse sources. However, there are some challenges that hamper this process of reading diverse sources. First, we tend to seek information confirming our own priors and sources that conforms to that. This causes filter bubbles. Second, when it comes to attention, our mind has its limits, especially with people having attention disorder, so simultaneously attending to multiple sources requires significant effort. To address this issue, we adopted the concept of comparison along with annotation. Together, this allows readers to see diverse sources simultaneously, engage, and critique each other. To operationalize this concept, we created a tool called NewsComp as a small use case. For the contrast purpose in this interface, two news stories are laid out side by side. Sentences are separated into lines. Assuming no background in journalism, two simple but doable annotation tasks are suggested to the readers, finding statements that are similar and identifying disparate statements that are important. For each annotation task, several features have been designed. Users can connect statements that are similar with an arrow, and they can select the checkboxes to identify important statements. For each task, users are encouraged to present rationale behind their task. These features were designed through a series of think-aloud interviews with several users using a Google drawing board. Using our design, we asked two research questions. In the first one, we examine how well users perform this annotation task. In the second, we check whether the annotation has any byproduct effect. That is, does the process lead to affecting users' perception of content credibility and perception of news quality? To answer these questions, we conducted a between subjects experiment. In the study, we examined two contentious news topics at the time: abortion and immigration. News articles were chosen for this study, taken from about a month ahead of the time of the study to account for any familiarity or memory effects. For each topic, we collected a pair of news articles from Google News on the same event. To design a uniform study length, two treatment and two control groups were formed. Each treatment group on the right would randomly assign a pair of news articles to read and annotate and answer a set of questions regarding our research questions. Each control groups also read a pair of articles, but from different topic to account for any implicit comparison or learning effects. They would also answer the questionnaires related to our research questions. To answer the second research questions, we asked users to rate their perception of an article on a set of statements taken from prior literature from communication. Considering users' news expertise could affect the results, we also collected two control aspects: their current event knowledge about abortion and immigration, and their perception of the value of media literacy. By targeting recruitment ads on users from the United States with interest in news-related websites such as CNN, New York Times, and Fox News, we recruited 109 participants for our study, primarily from Facebook and a few from Reddit. The participants were demographically diverse, adhering close to the distribution of US population, with some relative skew when it came to education and political ideology. We used median to separate current event knowledge and value of media literacy categories into category of high and low. Since the annotation tasks are subjective in nature and we needed to analyze performance of the users, we recruited 2 news experts to create gold standards as a reference for metrics such as precision, recall, and F1 score. To answer the performance aspects, we started by looking into users' annotation statistics. We found that users had higher precision in the similarity finding task, while performing pretty bad in the disparate important statement finding tasks. Next, we analyzed how many users made each annotation irrespective of whether if it was correct or not according to the experts. When we divided into these 2 categories of correct and incorrect, we found that fewer users would make the same annotation when it came to incorrect compared to when it was correct in the similarity finding task. When we don't have expert annotation in vast majority of content, this information could be particularly useful to identify incorrect annotation. Therefore, we examined whether if we can use the number of users as a threshold to filter wrong annotation to improve the performance. Our analysis showed that using 5 to 6 annotators to use as a cutoff to filter out annotation could result in moderate F1 scores, over 55% for similarity finding tasks and 41% for disparity finding tasks. Recall, we suggested users to provide rationale when annotating. We analyzed the provided rationales and categorized the rationales into a taxonomy. For the similarity finding task, the categories included referring to person, location, dates, and course as criteria to identify similarity. For important disparity detection tasks, there are several reasons, including statements that were clarifications, missing from other articles, or providing factual information as criteria for importance. Using the most frequent words used in the rationale, we created a classifier that would separate users' correct annotation from wrong ones. We found that there are several general keywords that are applicable in various news articles, apart from these 2 items related to abortion and immigration. So there are possibilities to use this kind of keywords from rationale in other contexts. To answer our second research questions, that is whether annotation impacts credibility and quality perception, we conducted an analysis of interaction, and we found there were some interaction effects in credibility perception between the groups only. However, it was limited to only for the high contrast news articles, that is immigration articles. There was no effect on quality perception irrespective of the news articles. Apart from the effects on credibility, users also showed some learning effect by performing the annotations. They noticed how articles were devising different arguments from different perspectives, how article authors would place information and go into different depth of information in different articles. They also saw linguistic differences in reporting such as empathetic or inflammatory languages. Overall, annotation affected users' understanding and showed some contrast between the articles. Perhaps that was the effect. This study has several implications. Users who are interested in getting more involved during news reading, such as annotators on Twitter's Birdwatch program, might be interested in using this kind of tools. Besides, there are 2 prominent cases how the annotation could be useful. We can merge articles into comprehensive ones, detailing everyday events into a single news articles efficiently consumable for others. Second, that we can also use the annotation to train machine learning models to improve their performance. Overall, this work shows promise of using comparative annotation in supporting news reading from diverse sources. There are several future directions of research, such as supporting users with low performance improve their annotation, creating and examining the effects of combined articles, and delegating annotation tasks to machine learning models. We encourage you to read the paper for further details.